Hello everyone, and welcome to the February edition of the Farmers Supply Association Agriculture Report. I'm Randy Klepechka, agronomist with Farmers Supply Association. Well, February is here, and as I said last month, planting season just is coming real quickly. You know, we'll more likely plant some crops in March and then full bore ahead in April. So getting close. On this month's program, I want to talk about a couple of new rice herbicides we have available this year. Really some pretty exciting additions to our rice herbicide arsenal, and I think some things that are really going to help us. So, you know, sometimes there's not a lot new to talk about, but I think these things are things that our farmers will use and use effectively, and it'll help them a lot. First herbicide I want to talk about is called Lloyd. This herbicide's been in the pipeline quite a while. We've heard about it for several years, and finally our farmers are going to be able to use it this year. Very excited about this. This is a Group 4 herbicide, which simply means it's in the same herbicide family as some herbicides like Facet, 240, and Grandstand. Very broad spectrum weed control. It's one of the great things about this. You know, so many of our herbicide systems, you know, seem like we've always got to mix things together and have, you know, other applications to really make the program successful. This is a very broad spectrum material with control of many broadleaves and many grasses. Probably its biggest weakness is a lack of activity on crabgrass, which I hate because we just don't have a lot of good materials for crabgrass. You know, we've got some residuals that help some, and Rice Star is decent on it, but really we need something better and more things in our arsenal for crabgrass, but this is not going to be it. Some minor weakness on Sprangle Top, Smartweed, Yellow Nutsedge. It's not terribly weak. It's rated a 6 or a 7 on these weeds, so you know it has decent activity on them, but you know we could stand a little better on those. The rate is 1 pint per acre. You do need to add MSO with it for activity. Critical about this, you need to apply this material about 3 to 7 days pre-flood, which is different than a lot of our other things that we use. How this herbicide is going to act: you're going to put it out about 3 to 7 days pre-flood, and then the weeds are going to start melting down, wilting down, but they're not going to die until that flood hits them. And that's why we need that flood to hit them within about 7 days. If we don't get that flood out there within 7 days, our activity is going to go downhill, and you're probably going to have to do something else. So that's going to be very critical to put it out no more than 7 days pre-flood. One more thing about this herbicide, it's a little bit, soybeans are somewhat sensitive to it, not just real terrible, but you're going to have to be careful around soybeans, which of course there's always going to be soybeans pretty close to rice. So again, this is Lloyd, Loyant, and it's going to help us out a lot, I think. So hopefully most of our farmers will be able to get this and use it and get used to this herbicide starting this year. Next herbicide I want to talk about is called Pervez. This is a herbicide system. This is a herbicide tolerant crop. You have to have the right variety that is tolerant to Pervez herbicide. This year we only have one variety, that's PVLO1. It's not a great variety, but it's a step in the right direction. There'll be better varieties out real quickly, maybe as early as next year. So PVLO1, yield potential is kind of average on it. It's not a great variety, but it's a decent variety. It's kind of late like Roy J, so it has some weaknesses. Also, it's very sensitive to fall smut disease. So things we've got to look at with this. But if you've got barnyard grass and red rice that's tolerant to New Path herbicide, then you need something if you're going to go rice in those fields, and this is the answer. So that's where I look for this to go, where these farmers have been using New Path for a long time and have resistance to red rice and even barnyard grass and some other things. So that's where we're going to need this herbicide. Again, it's called Pervez, Provisia. Pervez, many of you are familiar with the old herbicide called Assure, which we used in soybeans. It's strictly a grass. It's the same active ingredient as Assure. Strictly a grass herbicide. No activity on broadleaves. It does have good red rice control, good weedy rice control, such as volunteer rice and things like that. So it's going to control all of our grasses out there, so that's very, very good. You need to apply the first application, generally about 1 to 2 leaf rice. The second one will be a pre-flood application. The rate is 15.5 ounces per acre. Do need to add crop oil concentrate with this for good activity. So again, grass control, 2 15.5 ounce applications with a crop oil. First one about 1 to 2 leaf rice, and the second one just pre-flood. You're going to need a good residual program, and we need that with all of our herbicide programs anymore, and pretty much all crops. We need a good residual program, so you need a good residual program out front for both grass and broadleaves before you make the Pervez applications. It'll help you with your weed control program overall. One thing we got to watch out for with this herbicide is antagonism if you tank mix with some broadleaf herbicides. So we want to put our broadleaf, if we're making a tank mix with a broadleaf herbicide, which we're going to have to do a lot of times because, again, Pervez only has grass activity. If you're going to have to make that tank mix, you need to do that with your first application. That way, if you do have antagonism, then your second application of Pervez alone will take care of that grass that may have not been totally killed because of the antagonism from the broadleaf herbicide. So again, Pervez, it's got to be used in the Pervez system. Remember, we've got to have the right variety or you'll kill your rice. So, but this is going to help us, and as we get more varieties in the future, I think it's really going to be a great tool for our farmers. We obviously need to avoid drift to non-Pervez rice because it will certainly injure or kill depending on how much Pervez it gets on that other rice. So we only, again, it only needs to get on the Pervez rice and avoid drift to other grasses. It won't be a problem, obviously. Drift to soybeans won't be an issue at all. We need to avoid broadleaf tank mixes with propanil and grandstand because they seem to be more prone to antagonism. So again, that's the Pervez system. It's another system that's going to help us a lot. One more new herbicide, I guess you can call it new. A couple of it's new ingredients we've been using for a while, but it's a new combination of herbicide. It's called Gambit. It's a premix of Permet plus Peak. We haven't used really Peak in rice. It's been more of a wheat herbicide. Really hadn't been used a lot around here at all, but it's a good broadleaf material. So Permet and Peak are the two materials in Gambit. It will be a little bit, you can kind of compare it to Permet Plus, but it'll be a little bit more broad spectrum than Permet Plus, and also add a little bit of residual with it to our broadleaf. So that's going to be a tool again. So again, some good new rice herbicide options for us: Lloyd, Pervez, and Gambit. And a couple of months we're going to be planting that rice and using these new tools, and hopefully they'll help us a lot. So until next month, this has been Randy Klepechka with your Farmer Supply Association Agriculture Report for February.